Spooky season is finally here once again, and there's only one thing I want to be for Halloween this year.
Cruella.
There are plenty of insane looks in this movie, but I want to recreate this leather suit outfit specifically. And the first step of transforming into any fictional character is, of course, locating fabric. So I headed to my local fabric store. My two favorite stores right next to each other. I then found the shiniest black pleather they had in stock, which was easy because they only had one black pleather in stock. I grabbed 2 meters of that. Why would they put the sticker right on top of this lady's face? As well as 6 matching large buttons and some white top stitching thread. We have about 50% of the supplies. Now, if you'll notice, this Cruella outfit isn't just made of leather. The sleeves and skirt appear to be woven strips of both leather and short black fur. There is, however, something you need to know about faux fur. It's super expensive. But I had a scheme. Instead of using fur, I'd find a black fluffy throw that kind of looks like fur. I then proceeded to check almost every store that sells bedding in my immediate vicinity. By far the best option I found was this velvet plush blanket at Walmart, but after a quick price check, I realized that this wasn't even going to be any cheaper. The fur at the fabric store is $18.50 per meter on sale, and I need about 1.5 to 2 meters. So according to those calculations, I wasted approximately an hour and 15 minutes searching through bedding. But since I don't really like driving pretty much at all, I was not down to go all the way back to the fabric store. So I headed home to start sketching out the bodice of the jacket. This sketch is going to serve as my plan while draping. I'm drawing out every single seam that I can see on Cruella's jacket, all the vertical and the horizontal seams. Then I'm going to label every single piece that those seams have created so that I always know which piece is what and where it needs to go. The bodice of this jacket alone, not including the sleeves or the collar, is made up of almost 80 different pieces. Now onto draping. Past Lindsay didn't know this, but voiceover Lindsay knows that this whole thing is just not going to work out. This Judy was a super sweet gift from my parents when I was a teenager, but it's really not the best, especially for this situation. See how open the sides are once it's adjusted to my size? That is no good. But while past Lindsay continues this time sync, I'd like to point out those flowers in the background. Wyatt got them for me because he's actually just the sweetest person ever. He also brought me up cotton candy grapes. If you haven't heard of them, you're missing out. The idea here was to hold up either muslin or the tracing paper to the Judy and trace out each square. But then I realized how completely impractical that is, especially when there's a gaping cavern on the sides, front, and back. Now for plan B. I just draped a regular front and back bodice all in one piece. Then I can take the muslin bodices, transfer them to paper using my spiky wheel, and draft this pattern like I would any pattern, just with many, many more pieces than usual. Okay, that was really stressful for a minute, but I think we're in a much better place now. I have all the squares demarcated and I just have to turn them into pattern pieces. And I don't think I'm gonna make a muslin out of this one because it's so much work. So I'm just gonna go straight into the real version and we're gonna hope for the best as far as sizing and fit goes. So I set off creating my pattern pieces. It's a lot of the same, so to make it visually interesting, I thought I'd get a long shot, but none of it is in focus because I'm a professional. Moving on, I cut out all my paper pieces and then traced them onto the pleather with a Sharpie and labeled every single piece with their corresponding number because the name of the game here is not getting things mixed up. All of these squarish pieces look very, very similar to each other. Don't be deceived by the fact that this segment is less than a minute long because in real life this took over 2 hours and no amount of yoga could have prepared my knees for this situation. After all that work, I really needed something fun to do, so Wyatt and I decided to go Halloween shopping. Are you excited to get Halloween decorations?
Oh yeah, sure. I just don't want to drum.
This place looks awesome! Maybe like this one and this one?
Sure, whatever you want.
We should ask about hay bales too, maybe.
You want small pumpkins?
Yeah, little ones. And some big. I want like a mixture of pumpkins.
It's called creepy cloth?
Yeah. It's like that weird netting stuff.
Oh, the fake cobwebs?
No, not that actually. You know the black stuff I hung on the banister? Last year?
Nah, I don't remember.
I don't remember how. Look, got creepy cloth ×2, spider web, fake snow, which isn't exactly useful, little baby skulls that I'm gonna string together.
Oh, sorry, man.
And more spider web stuff, all for like $5 combined. Plus like this little skeleton man, I don't know. Pretty good. Good stuff. Little Halloween goodie bags.
Cool. And I got this.
I got a flamingo sweater. After shopping, it was time to get back to work. And by work, I mean making a mask for a customer. So I figured I'd show you guys how to make one. Start by cutting out 4 mask-shaped pieces, the size of your face, 2 6-inch long pieces of elastic, and 1 W logo, or Scythe logo if this is sold on my store. Sew them together, iron on the logo, put it in an envelope, and slap it with a Canadian Moose stamp. Boom, mask. Or save yourself the time and buy one at Lindevil.com. Now, back to Cruella. Okay, it's finally time to start sewing all 80 some odd pieces together. I'm pretty sure this is like the hardest part of the whole costume. Let's just get it done. Being super careful to sew all the right pieces together, I went horizontal seam by horizontal seam until everything was together in little chunks. Then I opened up the seam allowance of all my little chunks and top stitched in white thread. At this point, I ran out of top stitching thread and realized I was going to need a whole lot more than I originally thought. So I went back to the fabric store and also stopped by Home Depot to grab some supplies for a totally irrelevant plant stand project. Now back to my little chonkers. There's almost nothing really to narrate here since I'm just sewing a bunch of squarish pieces together, so let's just watch it together at 30,000% speed.
2 days later.
I came up here yesterday morning and all that was left to do on this part of the jacket was sew in this waistband. So I sewed it in and I tried it on and it looked like garbage. Bubbles all over the place, none of it was smooth, and it didn't contour to my waist at all, which is basically the whole entire point of the jacket. So I went fully fledged panic mode. The whole 9 yards. I was crying, I was running downstairs, hugging Wyatt while he's trying to make a lunch. It was just a mess. None of this is on camera for obvious reasons. So I decided that the best way to fix it, and the thing they probably actually did on Cruella's real costume, was to put boning in to all the vertical seams. And that'll hold the waist shape. But I didn't have any boning, I had zip ties and duct tape. And it actually worked. It actually looked a lot better. But the only thing is, in my haste to try to fix it, and being as emotional as I wasn't being careful, and I didn't check that the natural curvature of the zip ties was going the right way. We want it going this way. But I didn't check that they were all going that way. So I'm gonna go back through right now, double check all of them. And then at that point, we can move on to the lining, collar, and placket. And finally, this part of the jacket will be done and we can make some sleeves. Oh, and before we move on, remember that plant stand I mentioned earlier? After my meltdown, I decided some good old-fashioned woodworking would make me feel better. And it did. Look how high this money tree is now. To double check my zip ties, I carefully peeled up the end of each piece of duct tape and took a look. Yep, in case you thought I was joking, there really is zip ties in there. After adjusting a couple, I put the vest aside and started cutting the lining. That gets assembled and then sewn into the jacket shell, wrong sides together. Then with the lining in, I could do the tricky parts, attaching the collar and collar stand, followed by the button plackets. Lots and lots of white top stitching going on here. After all of that, I had the body of the jacket completely finished, minus buttons.
Vanilla zinger.
Can I sew next to you?
Button sewing time lapse. Time to draft the sleeves and the skirt. Once I have both of those things drafted, we can finally go and buy the faux fur. I haven't bought it yet because, as we already talked about, faux fur is very expensive. So I wanted to draft all the pattern pieces that need to be cut out of it first, lay it all out, measure like exactly how much I need, and then buy just that amount. Speaking of the skirt though, let's talk about how my costume is gonna differ from the actual Cruella outfit a little bit. In the movie, her skirt is quite long. It's like a T-length skirt, you could call, like it hits like mid-calf, but I don't really like the look of that. I think it's a little old and like matronly. The whole entire movie is supposed to be inspired by 70s punk, and 70s punk skirts were definitely mini skirts. So I'm gonna make mine a mini skirt instead. So I did do exactly what I said I was gonna do in that last clip, draft the skirt and sleeves, but then my hand slipped, and instead of cutting out pattern pieces, I started cutting out bats. Then I started stringing together my mini skulls from the thrift store goodie bag into a skull garland, and then, just one thing led to another, and I decorated the whole front hall. Halloween has always been my favorite holiday. It's just the best. Making costumes, carving pumpkins, receiving and or giving out free candy. Here in Canada, it's chilly but not snowing yet, and it's not really a family holiday. You just kind of get together with some friends and get drunk in wacky outfits. What's not to love about that? Although it obviously won't be necessary this year, my number one sort of fast, easy, go-to last-minute costume is Wednesday Addams. Comment down below what yours is. So yeah, I decorated the front hall and also our porch. Gotta make sure all the kids know this is the best house to come to for candy. With all my decorating done, I could move on to figuring out how much faux fur to buy. Luckily, because I made the change to a mini skirt, I only needed about 1 meter for all the pieces. So back to the fabric store. Now that we have all of our materials officially collected, let's talk about a game plan. I'm thinking, like many things in sewing, we gotta work in chunks. 1 chunk of pleather and 1 chunk of faux fur per pattern piece. I cut the pleather out first, then drew on my straight lines exactly 1 inch apart. I repeated the same process for the fur and then started cutting. I cut almost all the way to the end of the pleather chunk, leaving just a bit attached at the end. Then it was just a lot of basket weaving. I just finished the first piece of making the material. Look.
Whoa.
Isn't that insanity?
Oh my gosh, it turned out so dope.
I know. It took a lot of time, but it turned out really, really good.
It looks just like the photo.
Yeah, it does, right?
This is the coolest thing I've seen you make.
Yeah, I think this is the coolest thing I've made. The amount of fluffs displaced by cutting faux fur is pretty outrageous. After a few hours of doing this, I literally just had to put on a mask because there was just fluffs in my eyes and my nose and my throat. And for the next few days after this, like, it was a fluff apocalypse in our house. They were everywhere. Once all 4 chunks were woven and fused together, I could finally cut out all of my pieces. 12 hours later, and with most of the fluffs extracted from my airway, I began working on the skirt. I sewed the darts and side seams, then added a waistband and a zipper and hemmed it. And you know, sometimes situations just call for the use of a glue gun. Ain't no shame in that. After this, I was able to try on the skirt with the jacket, and I found that there just simply was not enough room for the booty. So instead of spending another 20-ish hours remaking the whole jacket, I just created some slits along the bottom hem. Next up, sleeves, something I was very nervous about. The woven pleather/fur fabric is super thick, and I wasn't sure how well I'd be able to gather it and create that little puff that Cruella has. But it turned out not to be as difficult as I thought. I used to work for a baby company, a baby clothing company, not a company that sells babies. And let me tell you, sewing a sleeve into place on a newborn size onesie, infinitely harder than this was. But anyways, with the sleeve sewn in, this outfit was good to go. Time to finally transform into Cruella. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, please consider supporting my channel on Patreon. It really goes a long way to helping me continue to create content. As well, huge shout out and thank you to my friend Bryce for helping me shoot the final look for this video. Happy early Halloween, and I'll see you guys all next time.